Street Fighter is one of the greatest game franchises ever made. Without it, the genre wouldn't even be where it is today. Street Fighter 6 is incredible, the gameplay is phenomenal, the roster is fantastic, and the online experience is better now than ever. But despite all that, there's one thing I've always felt Street Fighter has been missing. It doesn't really take enough risks in my opinion. And before everyone rushes to the comments, I'm not talking about gameplay. Street Fighter has always evolved its mechanics, it's always getting better. I'm talking about everything outside of the fights, because when you compare Street Fighter to another giant in the genres, to say like Mortal Kombat or Tekken, the difference is shocking. At one point, Mortal Kombat was constantly experimenting with crazy ideas, while the other usually just plays it safe. So today I want to talk about why I think Street Fighter is also afraid to take risks, why Mortal Kombat has always been willing to try weird and creative ideas, and why I think Street Fighter 6 or Street Fighter 6 and on could become an even better game or franchise if it embraced that same mentality. But before we get into it, if you guys don't know me by now, I'm Mr. Frosty Flames, but you can call me Mike. We do anything gaming news, reviews, playthroughs, etc., and we do it in a chill way with no over editing BS. So if you enjoy that style of content, be sure to hit that sub button and join the Mr. Frosty Flames Legion. Anyways, let's get back to the video. You see, I gotta talk about Mortal Kombat if I want to get into this with Street Fighter, because Mortal Kombat has always been the king of just random ideas, you know. One thing I've always respected about that franchise is it never just wanted to be another fighting game. Sure, you know, you had the versus mode, you had the towers mode, those were the main attractions, but the developers constantly asked themselves, okay, what else could we do? How could we expand this game? That led to some of the most weirdest ideas in gaming history, or fighting game history, like chess combat, puzzle combat, motor combat, conquest mode, the crypt, create a fighter. If you played Mortal Kombat, especially the 3D era, you know these modes. Even if every experiment wasn't perfect, they were memorable. Nobody expected Mortal Kombat to suddenly become like a Mario Kart racer, or like a Tetris puzzle game, or maybe even like a giant RPG style adventure, but NetherRealm and Midway just tried it anyways, and sometimes those ideas didn't really take off, like maybe puzzle combat, but sometimes they became fan favorites like the conquest mode and the chess and motor combat. But at least, you know, they tried. You see, compare that to Street Fighter. Street Fighter plays it safe, because when a new Street Fighter comes out, you pretty much know what you're getting, you know, basically arcade mode, training, versus online, trials, maybe a few bonus modes, but don't get me wrong, those modes are great. But they're also expected, because Street Fighter has built an incredible competitive experience. It just hasn't expanded much beyond that. It rarely surprises players with something completely unexpected, and Street Fighter 6 actually did a good job with World Tour. Now I'm gonna give them a ton of credit here, because World Tour was exactly the kind of risk I wanted to see. For the first time in years, Street Fighter gave players a mode that felt like an actual adventure game, even akin to maybe a mini RPG. You know, you explored cities, you met legendary masters and fighters, you learned new moves for your character, you built your avatar and character, you customized them. You know, it wasn't perfect, but it was fresh for the franchise. Honestly, I loved it because it reminded me a little of Mortal Kombat Deception's Conquest mode. Not because they're identical, but because they both gave you a reason to exist in the world outside of just one-on-one matches. You know, to me, that was exciting, and it proved Street Fighter could do more than just traditional arcade modes, and I hope Capcom continues building on it. I know recently they said that they stopped updating the World Tour. Okay, maybe that's okay, you know, it's a couple years old, but maybe for the next entry, I want to see an expanded open world like Conquest-esque Street Fighter game mode, a World Tour Plus or a World Tour 2 expanded. Man, it would be crazy. But the biggest thing that disappoints me, where I think Street Fighter still falls behind, is where is the crazy modes? You know, compare that to Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat has the chess combat, the motor combat. Where's the mode in Street Fighter that makes everyone say, okay, I can't believe they actually put this in the game? Street Fighter had fun bonus content over the years, you know, the classic car crusher mode, the barrel breaker, bonus stages, maybe extreme battles. You know, they're kind of iconic, but let's be honest, they're still short mini games. You spend a minute smashing a car, then you go right back to fighting. Compare that to something like chess combat. That wasn't a 30-second distraction, it was an entirely different way to play Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat wasn't just a one joke stage, it was a completely completely different racing mode with characters and tracks. It was cool. Puzzle Combat could honestly been sold as its own maybe downloadable $5 game. These weren't just throwaway ideas, they were genuine experiments made by NRS and Midway at the time. And now you can say, okay, you know, modern Mortal Kombat sucks balls, right? They don't really have those modes anymore. They didn't bring any of them back. The most iconic game mode right now is basically nothing because they just have a story mode, online ladders, and then invasions mode, which sucks balls too. So, you know, they're trying to innovate. They tried with invasions mode, but it just didn't hit the same. But that still doesn't take away the fact that, you know, Street Fighter never really had these in the past. And you know what disappoints me the most is Street Fighter's characters have huge personalities. You know, they have the perfect cast to have these, you know, outlandish game modes. Like, imagine a crazy party mode starring maybe Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, Blanca, Zangief. The possibilities are endless. Maybe like a goofy volleyball mode like Tekken, maybe a survival co-op mode, or a board game mode, or a racing mode, or maybe just like a beat 'em up or a puzzle mode inspired by their character's special moves or something. There are so many directions Capcom could explore without hurting the competitive side of Street Fighter. You see, those extra modes wouldn't replace ranked matches. They'd simply give fans more reasons to keep playing, basically boost higher player retention for the competitive and casual players. And taking risks doesn't always mean success. Okay, not to be fair, not every experiment Mortal Kombat made was amazing. It wasn't, oh, the best thing ever. You know, some people didn't like Mortal Kombat, some barely touched chess combat. Creative Fighter was very divisive, and even Invasions, like I said, has received plenty of criticism. You know, taking risks doesn't guarantee success, but I'd rather see a developer try something ambitious than never try at all, because even when an experiment doesn't land, you learn from it. Every now and then you create something fans remember for decades, and Street Fighter could lead the genre again, because World Tour proves Capcom is willing to think bigger. Now imagine if they take one more step, you know, expand World Tour, create an open world Metro City and cooperative missions, invent completely new party modes, you know, bring back the bonus games and evolve them into full experiences instead of brief interruptions in between gameplay. You see, Street Fighter already has the good gameplay, it already has great characters, it already has the legacy. Now it just needs to surprise us. And I want to make one thing clear in the end, you know, this isn't a video saying Mortal Kombat is better than Street Fighter. They're just trying to accomplish different things. Street Fighter has always been focused on creating one of the deepest competitive fighting games ever made, and it succeeded. But as someone who loves both franchises, I can't help but imagine what Street Fighter could become if it embraced the same experimental spirit that Mortal Kombat showed during its most creative years. Street Fighter 6 took a huge first step with World Tour. Now I hope Capcom keeps pushing forward, because sometimes the biggest risk is just never taking one at all. But what do you guys think? Would you like to see Street Fighter experiment with more ambitious game modes, or do you think it should stay focused on what it already does best? Let me know in the comments down below. But that's going to be it for today's video, guys. If you like this video, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe to join the Mr. Frosty Flames Legion. Thank you guys for watching. Mr. Frosty Flames out. Ciao.